Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 131, Elements of College Mathematics, Section 2.2, Problem 26. This is Section 2.2, Problem 26. It says use row operations to change the 2 in the matrix below into a 0. So as we look at the matrix we have a 2 in the middle of the far left column, and we need to make it a 0. So to make a 0, you make zeros by adding 2 rows together. So we need to make a little equation off to the side and then apply that equation to make a new row 2, which is going to start with a 0. So my equation will begin with row 2. The equation you make should begin with the row where you want to make a 0. I want to make a 0 in row 2, so my equation begins in row 2. So my equation will be row 2 equals some stuff plus the old row 2. Whatever row your equation begins with, it should end with the same row. I begin in row 2, I must end in row 2. Now, initially I leave a blank area in the middle and I just refer to it as stuff. Not very mathematical, but now let's go back and fill in the stuff. What is the stuff? The stuff is the row with the 1 in the same column. That would be row 1. And that row with the 1 in the same column will be multiplied times the number that you're turning into a 0. But with the opposite sign. So I'm turning a 2 into a 0, so my equation also has a 2. But it must have the opposite sign, so it'll be a negative 2. Again, I begin with the row where I want to make the 0. I must end with the same row. What's added in the middle is the row with the 1 in the same column times the number I'm zeroing, but with the opposite sign. Positive 2, negative 2. Now, if I apply that equation to row 2, I will make a new row 2, which will have a 0 in that leftmost position. So let's go ahead and do that. When I make a new row 2, I'm still going to have the old row 1, so I'll put that in now. 1, 3, 0, 6. Now, this 2 is going to change. When I multiply negative 2 times row 1, it will be negative 2 times 1, so I'm going to make a negative 2. And once I get that, I'm going to add it to row 2. Negative 2 plus positive 2. Negative 2 plus positive 2 is 0. Next, and so you can't do it just to that one position. You have to do the whole row. So now next, this negative 1 will change into something else. What will it change into? Well, when I multiply times negative 2, I'm going to make a negative 6 because I'm doing negative 2 times row 1. So that's negative 2 times 3, which is a minus 6. And then I take that result and add it to row 2. So negative 6 plus negative 1. Negative 6 plus negative 1 is negative 7. Next, this 5, what happens to that? Well, that changed into something. Actually, the 5 doesn't. I do negative 2 times row 1, which in this column is negative 2 times 0. So when I multiply times negative 2, I make a 0. Add that result of 0 to row 2. So 0 plus 5. Well, 0 plus 5 is 5. So the 5 actually did stay. And then finally the 3, what happens to that? That one will change. So negative 2 times row 1, when I do that, that's negative 2 times 6. I'm going to make a negative 12. Take that negative 12, add it to row 2. So negative 12 plus positive 3. Negative 12 plus positive 3 is negative 9. And then the bottom row can stay the way it is because I'm making a new row 2. I've got it. So row 3 will stay 3, 8, 5, 11. And that's the answer.